Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Helen McIntosh and I'm the President of the South East London Chamber of Commerce. We're absolutely delighted to have Stacy Smith with us today, who's the Director of the Centre Ltd. And Stacy's going to talk about women's safety on a very special webinar. I think I see a lot of women here and we're very conscious of the problems that we are collectively all experiencing in 2022. I'd like to also add that as a chamber, we work with the Royal Borough of Greenwich on the best of the Royal Borough's Business Awards. And I'm delighted to say that in 2021, Stacy won the Workforce Development Award. And that was so well deserved, because you are an organisation that is continuing to upgrade everyone you're working with and us today. So I'm now going to hand over to Stacy for the presentations. And can I just say, will we have questions at the end?
Yes, though I will take questions throughout if people have a strong question.
Okay. And can I ask anyone then, if you've got a question, can you please put up your yellow electronic hand? And Senga, will you monitor them, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Stacy.
Thank you very much, Helen. Thanks for the nice introduction. Good to see you all here. I'm going to share my screen and put my slides up, and let's hope that this works. Can you all see that? Yeah? Okay, lovely. So thank you for having me here. I'm Stacy Smith, as Helen said, from the Centre. We are the Women's Advocacy and Advice Service for Greenwich. I'm going to give you a little background about Centre, and then I'm going to talk a lot about women's safety and what's happening right now. And there is quite a lot of movement right now politically around addressing women's safety, which I think is good. I've also got a few videos. I really hope the sound works. That's always an issue on Zoom, but we'll give them a try. So first, just about Centre services. We're Greenwich based. We're for any woman who lives, works, or studies in Greenwich. And our main focus is empowering women to move away from abusive relationships and move forward with their lives. We do have a range of services, though, beyond our domestic and sexual violence advocacy. That is our main service, and we work with women and girls from 13 years and upwards in terms of age. We also run support and social groups. Social groups are open to any women who are interested, and we have counseling that is specifically for women who've been through our advocacy services and experienced abuse. We also have work placements, and they're open more widely to women. And there's 6-month paid work placements that we do with Greenwich Local Labour and Business. We run open forums on women's issues that are open to anyone who's interested, women and men. And we run free women-only basic English classes that are incredibly popular. And we've just done a fundraising, match fundraising campaign that so far we've raised over 20,000 towards continuing those English classes. We run 3 courses at a time. They run for 10 to 12 weeks each, and we run them 3 times a year. So we get a lot of demand for our English classes. As I said, our main service is our IDVA service. That's Independent Domestic and Sexual Violence Advocacy Service. And that is an accredited service, accredited by a national organization called Safe Lives. And our staff are also qualified through a Safe Lives training program. And what our team do for women, we do a risk assessment. We represent them at the fortnightly meetings that are run by the police with the council for looking at very high risk cases of abuse. So that's every fortnight. We represent the women who are referred to us there. We give them practical help, advice and information, emotional support. We do awareness raising around recognizing abusive behavior, what is consent, which is especially important with the younger girls and young women we work with. advice on family legal issues through our one-stop shop every Friday, 10 to 12. There's a family solicitor who comes and sits with one of our staff members, and they give free legal advice around family law. We give support to women when they're going through the county magistrates and crown courts, assist with housing, and we have a housing IDVA that works 2 days a week in the council's housing inclusion department, which is really helpful. And as I said, we run the support groups, counseling, and the work placement program. So we've got quite a lot going on for women. And just to let you know, our services are always in demand. In the last financial year, we had 781 referrals, and each referral we contact at least 3 times at different times of the day, whatever, to, you know, make attempts to try and contact them unless they outwardly refuse our service. We engaged, and that means we had at least a few phone calls going through some practical help and advice. Could be anything up to working with them for a couple of years if they take up counseling and the work placements. And we did that with 633 women in Greenwich. We had 380 people attend our training and events last year, even though most of them were online. And we had 62 women take up group or one-to-one counseling, and 42 who engaged with us were specifically getting support addressing sexual abuse. So that just gives you a flavor of our work and what it looks like, what we're doing. So with the recent murder of Sabina Nessa, community safety has been a major concern for Greenwich residents. And I think for Greenwich Council, and the council's been, you know, reaching out a lot more to see what they can do. What are the real risks for women in Greenwich? I mean, many of us fear that, you know, stranger danger, it's very drilled into us, I feel, but actually we are at greater risk from men we know, especially an ex-partner. So I'm not saying that women don't need to be mindful when they're on the streets. And I'm not saying that we as a society don't need to address the threat to women on the streets, but actually the biggest threat to us in our lives is likely to come from a man we know. So it's good to put it in perspective. And actually the people who are most at risk in the street are young men from stranger danger, because they're most likely to get into a fight that leads to serious harm or death, you know, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. So, and yet men don't walk around fearful for their lives all the time. So I think that's an interesting thing to just be mindful of. Both the risk from strangers and from men we know and live with are linked to a negative view of women that needs changing, as both create a real fear for us. So I'm going to try and give you this DVD now. Let's see if I can do it. This is always the test. Not that one. This one. Okay. Where is it? Why isn't it showing?
Have you got it open on the desktop?
Yes, I do. There it is.
Oh, I always do that.
It was hiding on me. There we go. Okay.
Oh, do you need me to resend the link or do you want? A man snatched my scarf. He said that I'm just here to sleep. Say it.
So could you all hear that?
Not very well. I could read the captions.
Okay, yeah, this is what worries me. Okay, I might have to get some technical help for the second one because there aren't captions on it. All right, let's get back my slides. So, you know, that's a film that was made by Anthony Canton. We've done some work with him. He did our film that's on our website. And I just think it's very useful to look at that combination of harassment around, you know, sort of racial and religious prejudice, as well as around what women face. And I think wearing a hijab does attract additional, you know, targeting of harassment for women. And that's particularly true when there's any kind of response from the far right. You know, women in hijabs do get a huge amount of harassment. I've had colleagues of mine who are not Muslim women, but because they're women of color, have experienced harassment in those situations. So it really is something. So women do get regular and constant harassment from men on the streets and in public places. This is evidence. I think it's something like 92% of women have experienced harassment in public places. And this is not about whistling, as our, you know, rather flippant prime minister indicated. You know, this is about intimidation and bullying with a real feeling of threat. When a group of young men or boys get started, especially on a woman on her own, she can feel her life is at risk. And once in a while it is. And that's the problem. You never know. So you have to constantly be on your guard. There's a wonderful quote by Margaret Atwood. When men go on a blind date, their biggest fear is being embarrassed. When women go on a blind date, their biggest fear is being killed. It's a bit of a different experience. And I think that's quite useful for men to consider. There's more and more recent research being done about the links between certain types of right-wing terrorism, particularly, but all terrorism, and a kind of hatred of women. So research has shown up that people involved in terrorism, 1 in 3 of them have been perpetrators or grown up with domestic violence in their families. Now that sounds like a meaningful figure, but actually in our work, 1 in 4 people have experienced domestic violence. So it's not that big an indicator to me that, you know, there's a connection. I think what's more worrying is that there are certain extremist groups and terrorist groups where women are one of their targets. It's not an aside hatred of women. It's a very focused hatred of women. And we are seeing that with incel groups. It's certainly something that comes out in the Pride Boys in America, who are quite a famous right-wing extremist group, who've been condoned by our former US president, which gives you, again, an idea of how this is so embedded in our society, these negative views of women. So women like myself, I started working in women's refuges back in '82. You know, we've been working for years and years to make the world safer for women. You know, women's refuges, domestic abuse advocacy services like ours at Her Center, training professionals, doing awareness raising with the general public. We've been challenging this trend for a long time. So why have we gained so little ground? Well, partly the competition is pretty fierce. Some would say, you know, we are only heard by those who share our views, but then we got to say, who thinks that women's safety doesn't matter? Who are these people? And I think, unfortunately, pornography plays a huge role in this, as it kind of feeds this very negative two-dimensional view about sex, and it's feeding it to younger and younger children, and the pornography they're accessing is more and more extreme. So it's quite worrying, and it's really important that parents talk about this with their children and look at what kind of protections they have on what their children can view. And it certainly causes a huge new range of potential harassment for women and girls out in the on the internet. So objectification of women is a multi-billion-pound industry, and if you compare that to the investment made by governments and private charities into work that we do to try and prevent abuse, you know, it doesn't really compare. So this is one of the challenges. And I would say it's a wider conceptual issue. You know, advertising, social norms across all cultures portray women, you know, with an expectation that they will be the primary carers for children and for any elderly people, for any disabled members of the family, at little or no pay. I think this is an unfair system. You know, it's a system based on the fact that we don't invest enough in looking after all our society. We expect a handful of people to take that on, and we put it onto the family. And I think to justify this uncomfortable arrangement, you know, there's a whole media push to show women as less important than men, and many men and many women buy into that. And it's really sad. We see it a lot in the girls that we talk to. They think they have to live up to things that are very much about them acting like dolls in a sexual situation, being very passive, only concentrating on pleasing their partner. And how that feeds into a wider view of who they are and their self-worth. I wanted to just mention something that's still on the BBC iPlayer, so I really recommend you watch it. It's called Writing with Fire. It's about Dalit women, that's the untouchable class, and they're a group of women running an all-female news agency called Kabar Laharia. And it's just amazing what they're doing. You know, there's quite a lot of oppression going on right now in India, and the way they are challenging the police, challenging employers who are mistreating their staff. It's just phenomenal. It's really worth watching. It's very inspiring. So there's no reason women have to be kept down by these things that are going on, but it is part of the challenges we face. I think we have more and more men now aware that they need to support us to challenge this negative view of women. But unfortunately, there are still a lot of men who still feel justified in this more two-dimensional view of who women are. And some feel entitled to take out their frustrations on them, which is why we continue to see such high levels of domestic violence and abuse. And I think it's really important to say that this is across all cultures. It's not about cultures that may have some practices we've now outlawed, like child marriages, female genital mutilation, forced marriage. We outlaw these particular practices, but we still have plenty of things going on in our culture that are less than ideal in how it presents women to the world. All right, now I am going to stop sharing. I'm going to do everything possible to get my sound up. It's on 100%. And then I'm going to try and share. Oh, I don't know why we're getting that. That's not what we want. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm not more adept at this. Can you hear that?
Hmm.
New York City. Between Harlem and the Bronx.
Yeah.
Boy, you was taught that men had to be tough, had to be strong, had to be courageous, dominating, no pain, no emotions. Anger, and definitely no.
Stacy, it's very, very soft.
Oh dear, I might have to email you the link to this because
Shall we do that, Stacy, if you're happy? Senga, if we can do that. Have you got everything, Senga? Can you do it?
Yeah, I have it. I have the link in the presentation.
yeah.
Okay, jolly good.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't share that with you. It's a really good TED talk, and he talks about the man box and how restricted men feel and boys feel around what they're allowed to do and not do. And it particularly hits on this issue about challenging the behavior of other men. So yeah, I really recommend you watch it. It's a very powerful clip. It's only about 10 minutes long, not even that, but he tells a very powerful story about both how he treats his young son and realizes the way he treats him differently to his daughter, but also about, kind of when he was a teenager or just before a teenager and some of the stuff he was dealing with. So I think we've reached a point where we really need men who support and want to support women to start being proactive about that, to step up and start to examine how these negative images have their effect. And, kind of what they've been sold. They need to be challenging the casual sexism all around them and to look at their own roles in the caring work they do for their own family and within their community. And we are running training around this, and I will talk about the training we're running that's specifically targeting how men can be active bystanders and stand by women. So just really important to be an active bystander and not be passive. And I know a lot of men are thinking, well, what can I do? So I'm just going to go through a few of the ways that we recommend, and there is some training on this that we're running later, early April, that again, we'll put out to any interested men. So how can men support women? Well, they can do this through, you know, being aware in public what they're seeing and by providing simple support. So if you see a girl or a woman who looks under threat or just uncomfortable with the attention from a man or a group of men, approach her and ask her, is everything okay? Don't assume, ask. I mean, you do get situations where you see someone arguing, you know, people arguing, and you go up and actually they're an established couple, they're having an argument, they don't feel they need your intervention. If you just say to her, are you okay? She may respond a little snappily and say, mind your own business, but you know, you've done no harm and you checked in. She may say, actually, I don't feel safe with this guy, you know, and then, you know, you've got an opportunity to see how you can help her. So I'm going to give you an example of a really mild situation that I did, but, you know, I think it was appreciated by the young woman involved. So I saw this young woman on the platform. It's 5 p.m. London Bridge on a Sunday afternoon. So it's, you know, it's not dark. It's not, you know, a weekend night, but there's a few people around, but it's not hugely busy. And there's two guys and they're really drunk. One of them's laughing hysterically and saying to the other one, you're so short. You're so short. I can't believe you're so short. You know, harmless, stupid, but, you know, not anything to worry about. And then he walks a little ways towards this young woman and says, what do you think? Do you think he's so short? What do you think? And she sort of humors him a bit. And he carries on a little bit longer, walks away. I think, okay, no problem. And then he starts to walk back. And he starts saying something, you know, like he's noticed, oh, you're a girl. Maybe I can engage you a bit more. And I thought, okay. And I walk over and I stand next to her and I say, you okay? And he's a bit thrown by this because he hasn't quite reached her. And he's thinking, oh, where's this other woman come from? Oh, and mutters something and he walks away, you know. And she says to me, I get it all the time. And I said, well, you know, hopefully now he'll leave you alone. He says, yes, but we're going to get on the same train. And I said, it's all right. Just let them get on first. Then we'll get on in a different carriage. And that's what we did. Now, these guys might have been perfectly harmless, but she didn't need the harassment. She didn't need that, you know, being drawn into their drunken stuff. And clearly he had no, you know, registering that he was being a pain in the ass, or he didn't care. And I think, you know, if we can intervene at an early stage, we can just pick up because we noticed it doesn't look quite right and say something to the woman so she can touch base with us and feel like she's got backup. But also that shows the guys, oh, I have to rethink this. She's not alone. And if they're looking to have a bit of sport, they may well then back off. So, you know, I really want people to hear that. So, you know, the other thing we advise people is around, if you hear people, you know, group of men talking about women in a way that makes women sound like objects or domestic slaves, then challenge this. If these are people you know, and you know, you're not going to end up putting yourself at risk, then it's really important to be challenging what they're saying. And the Mayor of London now has a new program that he's put out called Have a Word, which is about men first having a word with themselves and then having a word with their friends when they're getting out of order and how they treat women in public. So really important to be an active bystander, to observe what's going on. If you see something uncomfortable, you know, be mindful that this could be going on. Who is it? Where is it? Who's involved? Report. Does it look at all threatening? If it's threatening, contact the police. Don't think twice about it. Contact 999. If it appears non-threatening, if they're drunk and joking around, but you can see she's uncomfortable, then you might want to bring another person in. two of you going up to her and saying, "You all right?" You know, it's just going to be even more off-putting, particularly if there's more than one guy. And it makes it safer for everyone concerned. Wherever possible, do speak to the victim. You know, if it looks unsafe and you've called the police and the police come, or, you know, you're in a venue, late night venue, and you get security and they've taken the guy or guys away, then check in with her afterwards. It really makes a difference to how the person feels who's getting that harassment. When looking to intervene in harassment at work or with family or friends, with people you know, then there's certain tools, again, that you can use. One is to, you know, during, you know, to kind of hijack the conversation, to distract people, to cut off a negative judgment or criticisms that are coming out, certain judgments. Change the subject, and it will change the atmosphere and make it less uncomfortable for the victim who's the target of that behavior. Disapprove, show that such behavior is not okay. We've got to say to people, you know, that's not right. And you can do that through nonverbal head shakes or whatever while they're saying it, but really worth actually saying some words to them too. If it's in a big public place and you don't want to do it there, then afterwards. And bring in other people. You know, if they hear a lot of other people saying this isn't appropriate, then it's got more likelihood to stick. Directly challenge. It's really important to say it then and there, this behavior isn't appropriate. You know, and talk about why it's not appropriate and why are they behaving like this. If somebody at work is a victim of continual harassment and unwanted touching and things like that, tell them you'll be a witness for them if they take action for it, because again, you know, they really need that kind of support if they're going to get anywhere with challenging someone, particularly if it's a boss or someone in a higher rank than them at work. So we are running active bystander training. We did a course in November, December that was kind of giving in-depth training to anyone who was interested over 3 sessions, really looking at how we can go out and spread the word about the importance of active bystanders. We are also going to be running our 2-hour course, and it's going to be on the 7th of April at 6 p.m. Anyone interested, please just contact me at my email address there on screen. It is for men only. We did open it originally and the trainer said no, it needs to be men only because women have such a different experience. They are so far ahead in the empathy to experiences of harassment on the street like this that they need a completely different training to what men need. Men need that kind of more basic, this is what it feels like, because it's generally not their experience. It's much, much less common for men to get harassed, teased, and picked on in the way that women are. I'm not saying that men don't get attacked, but it's not on the same level. It's not about undermining. It's usually about direct aggression. So it's quite different. So that training is available. And those are all my slides. And I'm so sorry I didn't get to show you the second video, but I will send that out to you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And yes, we'll, and it'd be actually much easier for people to watch the TED Talk in their own time, I think. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we have Odette.
Odette, yeah.
Hi there.
Over to you.
And first, can I say to Stacey, thank you so much for all the work you do. It's amazing. I can't support you enough.
Thank you.
I've done the Stand By Me training, and it was very good. And I feel like I'm still processing some of the things we talked about, and I feel like I'm doing a culture change in my head. And I'm aware of the work you're doing with Little Fish to bring about culture change in our schools and our children's thinking, and work with young people about consent and recognising harmful relationships. My question for you is really, how do we bring about a change in our culture, in our society? How do we it worries me that the only people we're reaching are people that are already fairly on the right path, whereas I want to be able to reach the wider community, and I don't know how. So what can I do?
I think it is about expanding who's giving the message. So for many years, it's been women who've been giving this message. And, you know, I think now we've recognized we really need men to be saying something, and not just agreeing with us, but actually being ready to, you know, stick their neck out and say something to other men who are their colleagues or their friends or their family, who may say things they think, hey, you know, that's not really right. And rather than going, oh, well, you know, it's uncomfortable, I don't want to say anything, that they do say something. Because this is all about, you know, I mean, if we're going to change culture, we have to do it on a lot of levels. You know, I don't do Twitter. Her center does Twitter, but I don't do Twitter, because who needs the grief, quite honestly. But clearly a lot of people are very active on social media, a lot of young women particularly, and it's so fraught, and there's a lot of work we need to do about that, but we need to be constantly challenging. So we need to do it ourselves, and we need to say to men, we need you on side, and we need you to say something, and not just sit there and go, you did the right thing there, dear, but actually say it yourself when you hear people saying things that aren't right. And obviously some things will be debated about, you know, should women do more childcare than men and whatever, and you have those debates, that's absolutely fine. But equally well, if somebody's patronizing a woman or, you know, saying inappropriate things to a woman, then we should just call them on it. And we need men to do that as well as women. So I think the real message is to go to the men in our lives and say, can you be more ready to speak out? You know, can you find ways to do that? And we, you know, I'll support you, but I don't want to be the one who always has to raise it. It needs to come from you, because they'll hear you better.
Excellent. And Odette, may I ask a question? I can see your name and councillor for KEWH.
Kidbrooke with Hornfair.
Kidbrooke with Hornfair. And will you be standing for Kidbrooke with Hornfair in the elections in May?
No, I will be standing for Kidbrooke Park.
Kidbrooke Park with the boundary changes. That's excellent. So, may I make a suggestion that after the elections, that we're all on the case? We'll have our Greenwich campaign. I can see my fellow director, Linda. Are you, I think, should we, you know, all the girls in the, that's very patronising, actually, say all the girls, but the women on the board, especially of the Chamber of Commerce, will be there, won't we, Linda?
We will. We will.
We will. And Linda represents the University of Greenwich. And in fact, we have two board members from the University of Greenwich, both female. So Odette, we've got a campaign.
There is a Women's Safety Charter relaunch happening. We did actually launch the Women's Safety Charter jointly with Greenwich Council, her center did, in 2018, but there's a relaunch going on. My only concern is there's also a community safety charter going around through Neighborhood Watch, and I'm worried there's going to be a little bit of confusion around those two. But yes, so you know, there is more work going on. I'm really hoping that the council will find additional funding, both to keep Little Fish going with their Embrace program, which is brilliant, but the money runs out at the end of this month, and to find the much needed extra domestic violence advocate we need, because we're funded for 2 posts and have had the same money for 12 years. And we do bring in external money too. And we do work very positively with the community safety team, I'll say, before Annette tells me off.
Well, we all go into, and Odette will say, you know, the council goes into PERDA next Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after PERDA, we're there.
Yeah. Great.
I can see.
So we have first Odette and then Annette, please.
Yeah, just a quick one really to Linda at the university. Are you pushing the Stand By Me training to the male students and staff?
I'm not sure that would be under a different department who works with students, but I can definitely, if you send me some information, I can definitely pass it on to check that out.
Are you going to do that, Stacey?
I'll send an invite to everyone here. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I can see Annette's hand. Annette.
Hello. Hi, Stacey. Just to reassure you from the council, I'm working with Charlene at looking at pulling together the funding for the Embrace project to work in the schools, which really does work directly with those young men that are showing worrying attitudes towards women. So we're looking at that. Obviously, I've already given Little Fish funding to roll out their misogyny play, which if anyone wants to watch, it is amazing. Across the London's, across Greenwich schools. And I'm just doing the paperwork on for an IDVA, an additional IDVA for you because of the increase in domestic abuse. It just takes time because I've only got one pair of hands, unfortunately.
No, we really appreciate how much you support us. Thank you, Annette. And, you know, just to put in context, you know, we got a lot of money from government last year because of COVID and the recognition of the increase of domestic violence cases coming forward. But, you know, COVID is, you know, relaxed, certainly in terms of the restrictions and how it's affecting our day-to-day lives. But the referrals have not decreased, as Annette's very well aware. Yeah.
That's brilliant. On behalf of the Chamber, Annette, we'd like to be the balm on your hands, please.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Jolly deep with volunteer. We are collective balm. Do we have any more questions? No. No. Last opportunity to ask a question. Oh, Linda, over to you.
One of the things, Stacey, you were saying about is if you're on a platform and you're trying to help somebody, you know, being supportive and ask them. I think as another woman, I would be fearful that the people harassing that person would then turn on me. So is that something that other people worry about, and how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think you have. Go ahead, Jane.
I was just going to say, I was listening to that story. It's something I've done quite a few times in various situations, particularly growing up as well, when I used to do the pubs and the clubs. I always approach them as if I'm a friend.
Yeah.
That I know them and they know me. So, and it's almost you immediate for me, because that is always a concern. For me, it's like I'll go straight into a conversation, completely cut them out of the picture. And that has always worked. They've just walked off because they think, oh, gone. I mean, the poor woman standing there thinks, who the bloody hell is this woman? But that's the way I've always approached it.
Yes,
and
that's,
I think eye language directly at her. She can click what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Yeah. I think that's always been in situations where it's blatantly obvious that the person's really uncomfortable, like they're being hit on or whatever it is, as opposed to. But even with the drunk people, I think I've probably done it with that. But that's how I've always done it.
Yeah. All right. Because the other thing is sometimes, you know, you've seen people stay on the platform and the girl's crying and they're just crying, you know, you don't know what's going on and you feel you want to go, oh, are you okay? But you don't go, oh, mind your own business, you know. So it's difficult, I think, you know, you've got that dilemma. It's split second, isn't it? Do I say something, or if she's with, you know, I'm talking about if someone was a couple and the woman was obviously crying. I've seen that a few times and I've sort of been cautious not to approach, because you don't know, it could be anything, but it could be, you know, them being verbally abused by that person. So
if you got their attention, could you not sort of mouth, are you okay, rather than approach?
That's a good, it's a good thing, yeah, because you usually,
you've got to get their attention, they've got to see you do it. But that's one.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, thank you.
And a colleague of mine, you know, a board member said, one thing you can do is if you see a bit of friction or, like you say, upset between a couple, you can say, are you both okay?
Yeah.
Because then you're not passing any judgment, you're just checking in. And, you know, you're unlikely to get, you know, people might be a bit like, but I don't think they're going to be angry. You know, they might just be a bit awkward at worst. I mean, obviously, if you see something that looks really heated, don't put yourself at risk. Call the police. That's, you know, they should intervene. And if you're seeing something like at a transport station, you look for the transport police or whatever. But yeah, if you can find them. You know, and we can ask our fellow passengers and stuff, you know, most of the stuff happens where there's other people around, you know, and we can say to the other people, this doesn't look right. Would you mind coming with me to just check with her she's okay, you know?
Thank you for that, Stacey. Debbie, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, no, I just thought that was a really good point, rather than confronting the person or pointing it out, but to take a more passive role. And I've seen situations where women have appeared to be in distress, and just by someone saying, would you like to walk with me? Or would you like to walk with me to the car or to the next stop or something like that? That tends to have the reaction that, oh, okay, it's, you know, and then the person would go away. So I thought it was a really good point.
Well said. Senga, you have your yellow hand.
I would just like to bounce back on that point, that it's definitely how you approach the situation and in terms of de-escalation, because from a man's perspective, and I've been in that situation before, when a man tries to stop another man or insert himself, oftentimes it's reciprocated with violence or with some kind of aggression, because they often take it as, you know, a hit to their ego or a hit to their masculinity, and then fights break out. I've been in the situations that in that before, but it's a risk that you're willing to take, because I think it's based how you were raised. If you see that woman, because I have a sister, I have a mom, and so you automatically imagine if that's who is your sister in that situation, you would want someone to come and to help, right? So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give that perspective. But oftentimes when a man stops another man from, you know, harassing or do things of that nature, it's always reciprocated, a lot of the times with aggression. But, you know, it's a risk. Better that than the aggression against the woman who's alone. So, yeah.
Well, I think, Senga, the point that the training around active bystander tries to make is don't talk to the man, talk to the woman. So, you know, don't, you know, if you see a woman upset and you can see this guy winding her up, just go up to her and say, you okay? You know, you can even pretend to know her. You go, hi, how you doing? Whatever, you know, because that is much more disconcerting for the guy. They feel, obviously with women doing it, there's no risk of loss of face to them. But and there's that possibility that there'll be a risk of loss of face. But if you're approaching her rather than him, it's much harder for him then to engage aggressively. And actually, if you turn to him and say, all right, mate, you know, and then talk to her and concentrate on her, that'll throw him even more, because you've clearly shown you're not aggressive to him. And, you know, this, you know, undoing male aggression, we need to put out that kind of positive energy instead. So it's all about checking in with her, and it's, you know, either blanking him, particularly if it's more than one, or, you know, just, you know, a quick acknowledgement, but, you know, no, the only time you're going to challenge their behavior is where you know them and they're, you know, people you know and have a relationship with. And that's different because, you know, one would hope they would not turn around and punch you in the face, but they would have a debate with you about it. You know, they may disagree with you, but at least you've made a point to them to consider. So yes, you shouldn't be challenging strange men. You should be checking in with the women. And the men that you should be challenging are the men that, you know, and have some kind of relationship with.
Thank you very much, Stacy. That was excellent. It's 5-1 now. Do I have any last input?
I'd like to say thank you for your time and effort. It's been very interesting.
Thank
and
you.
I'll certainly look up that story, Phil.
Yeah, do. It's really good.
I will.
I think it's been such an interesting morning. I think, with the exception of Senga, I think it's a little sad that we've only that we're all female on the call.
No, but you can ask men you know if they want to sign up for the 7th of April, 6 p.m. It's just 2 hours, but it will give them much more detail about, you know, kind of what to do in these situations. Exactly. How to be an active bystander.
And we will promote that, won't we, Senga?
Definitely.
Definitely. And thank you so much, Stacy. And I know we're really talking about Greenwich today, but on the grounds at the Chamber, we represent 5 boroughs: Royal Greenwich, Lewisham, Bromley, Bexley and Croydon. I'm going to ask you if we could have another thing about general women's safety. We'll really push out to, you know, to the other boroughs as well.
Sure. Good.
Thank you so much. And I hope you're going to be entering the business awards again.
Thank you very much, Helen, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.